I'm going to move to the next question. What specific changes should be made in NAFTA? Mayor Giuliani?
I think the main thing is it should be enforced. And the reality is NAFTA has been a good thing. I was concerned about NAFTA, and I became convinced watching it that it's actually helped us. Our percentage of exports, percentage of our GDP has gone up dramatically from something like 9% to 11%. It's brought more jobs to America. America should think about free trade, global economy as something we want to embrace. This is what we've always wanted. And America is a country of entrepreneurs and dreamers and creators. And what we should be thinking about is how much can we sell to these people? As they're coming out of poverty, 20 million, 30 million people in India, China. These are new customers for the United States of America. And then we have to make sure that we have a level playing field. That's very important. But we shouldn't lose the goal of free trade. We're big dreamers here in this country. We've got plenty we can sell all over the world that'll make up for what we're buying.
Senator Thompson, what specific changes would you make to NAFTA?
Well, I think free trade and fair trade is the backbone of our economy. I think it's been just as good for us as it has Mexico. In fact, I think Mexico needs to think about that when they criticize us for trying to enforce our border. They export or send more people out of the country every year than we do in terms of illegal aliens. So it's been a good thing for both countries. It's a long, complex document. I have nothing in particular to point out. I just think we need to make a commitment to free and fair trade and enforce the agreements that we've got. The problem is too many people close their markets to us. They won't trade with us, but they want to place undue restrictions to our manufacturers and our farmers. We can't stand for that.
Congressman Tancredo.
NAFTA has been a disaster for a lot of places, and especially Mexico. Southern Mexico, it was a disaster. It destroyed the entire agricultural economy. Guess what happened? They all came north. If NAFTA had worked so well as everybody on the stage appears to think it did, why would we still have so much pressure on our southern border from people trying to escape from a country that does not provide them with the economic opportunities that that NAFTA promised? What, of course, is also ingrained in this whole discussion is the lack of sovereignty, the fact that our borders are now meaningless, the fact that Mexican trucks can come across essentially without being checked. These are the problems with NAFTA, and they have to be unwound.
Congressman Hunter, you wanted in on that?
Absolutely. When we had a $3 billion trade surplus with Mexico when we passed NAFTA, and the advocates said we're going to build on that surplus. Today we have a massive trade loss. We went immediately to a $15 billion trade loss. We've had that now for the last many years. And let me tell you, if you take your product, made in Iowa, down to the Mexican border right now and try to get it across, you will pay a 15% tariff, which they moved into place after we passed NAFTA. You know, trade deals are business deals between nations, and we haven't made good business deals between nations, and NAFTA is a bad business deal.
I want to move on and hear the free statements from our next two candidates. Congressman Paul first, and then Senator Thompson.
The goal of all political action should be to preserve liberty. We need more freedom in this country. We need to look to ourselves and what we are doing. We have drifted so far from our Constitution that the Constitution was written to restrain our government. Yet we've turned around, and the Constitution now is used to restrain the people. But we have no chance if we don't restrain the government, all that they do in undermining our personal liberties, controlling our economic well-being, and using it as an excuse to police the world. If we don't change the role for government, this country is going to suffer a very, very serious economic crisis.
Senator Thompson.
On all these issues, I've been a strong, consistent, common sense conservative. But the most important issue facing our country, and will be for a long time, is national security and the safety of our people. I've spent a lot of time, both in and out of government, traveling, talking to foreign leaders, dealing with these issues. I know the world we live in. I think I know what we need to do. I think that it's going to require strong leadership. And I would ask people to think one thing before they cast a vote. When our worst enemy is sitting down at the negotiating table thinking about what he can do to the United States of America, who do you want sitting on our side of the table representing you? That's probably the guy you ought to elect president.
Thank you. I want to take on a new issue. I would like to see a show of hands. How many of you believe global climate change is a serious threat and caused by human activity?
I'm not doing hand shows today. Yeah.
No hand shows.
No
today.
hand shows.
And so, does that yes or no for you? Do you believe that global climate change is a serious threat and caused by human activity?
Do you want to give me a minute to answer that?
No, I don't.
Well, then I'm not going to answer it.
Okay?
How about 30 seconds?
No, I want
You
you.
want to show of hands? I'm not
We're
getting it.
going to follow up on that, but what I need to know is who believes global climate change is serious and caused by
I
human
do.
activity, and then we'll talk in more detail about it.
I believe that
Serious?
global
I believe it,
climate
And I
change
think
is
that
a
climate change
serious.
is real, and I've been
Let's have a
involved
chance
in
to talk about
I'm going to start with Senator
I've been
McCain and
involved-
come back to Mayor
I've been
Giuliani.
involved in this issue since the year 2000. I have had hearings. I've traveled the world. I know that climate change is real. But let me put it to you this way. Suppose that climate change is not real, and all we do is adopt green technologies, which our economy and our technology is perfectly capable of, and then all we've done is given our kids a cleaner world. But suppose they are wrong. Suppose they are wrong and climate change is real, and we've done nothing. What kind of a planet are we going to pass on to the next generation of Americans? It's real. We've got to address it. We can do it with technology, with cap and trade, with capitalist and free enterprise motivation, and I'm confident that we can pass on to our children and grandchildren a cleaner, better world.
Mayor Giuliani?
I agree with John. Climate change is real. It's happening. I believe human beings are contributing to it. I think the best way to deal with it is through energy independence.
Who doesn't
and
agree?
I think energy independence
That
is
I
a.
agree with.
Who doesn't agree?
But he said contributing, but not totally.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
And I
more
think
than
our party.
You're
and
getting
close.
closer.
More than contributing,
Give us each a chance.
And I think that our party should
I did-
embrace this as an issue for us.
Let me come at it this way. Let me come at it this way. What impact on the economy would be acceptable in order to reverse global warming and greenhouse gas emissions?
It will help
Governor
our
Romney.
economy.
Well, it's going to help our economy because we're going to invest in new technologies to get ourselves off of foreign oil. And as we get ourselves off of foreign oil, we also dramatically reduce our CO2 emissions. That's good for the environment. It's also good for our economy because buying $300 to $400 billion worth of oil a year from other people who use it against us, that's bad for our economy. It's also bad for the environment. We
So
can
there
do
are-
these things in a way that help both the environment and the economy and national security. That's the beauty of what we're talking about here, which is, yeah, is global warming an issue for the world? Absolutely. Is it something we can deal with by becoming energy independent and energy secure? We sure can. But at the same time, we call it global warming, not America warming. So let's not put a burden on us alone and have the rest of the world skate by without having to participate in this effort. It's a global effort, but our independence is something we can do unilaterally.
Mr. Keyes, what do you think about this?
Well, what I think is that a lot of folks out there ought to understand that what you're watching represents the situation in our country. Ask yourself who represents the people they don't let you hear from. And you'll know who you should vote for in the Iowa caucuses. Who represents the voice that they're absolutely determined to overlook in the discussion of our sovereignty and the betrayal of this people's sovereignty. On the border, on our moral principles, on the major export overseas, which is our jobs. These folks represent the very elites who year after year after year have destroyed our Constitution,
Ambassador.
betrayed our rights, and undermined our strength created by our people in the world. And yet
Ambassador.
the one person willing to talk about that is overlooked time and time again. That person
I agree with
represents
Alan
you.
Keyes' position on global warming.
Because mostly, I would have to say, I'm in favor.
let me come to.
I'm in favor of reducing global warming because I
Let me
think
come to a
I think the
question.
most important emission we need to control is the hot air emission of politicians who pretend one thing and don't deliver.
Dr. Heal myself.
Let me come back. Let me come to a question that Iowans may not let you out of answering. Governor Huckabee, you've said you support increasing government mandates requiring motorists to use 36 million gallons of biofuel by 2022, which is 6 times what we're producing this year. Are you willing to increase that mandate, even if it will drive up feed for livestock producers or force consumers to buy flex fuel vehicles?
I don't think that's what's necessary. And the reason that this issue ought to be important is because we don't own this earth. We are simply stewards of it, caretakers. And I know on a day like today, it's hard to believe there is global warming, if anybody's been in Iowa on a day like today. But climate change and who's causing it is of less importance than what Senator McCain said, and he's exactly right. We have done no harm if we take better care of this planet and give it to our children with cleaner air, cleaner soil, and cleaner water.
So are you willing
We
to
have
increase the mandate?
I am willing for us to make the decisions which will not necessarily create the mandates. And here, let me tell you how we do it. You know who one of the biggest energy users is in the whole country? The United States government. If the government commits to being the primary user of alternative forms of energy, we have a market built in, and therefore the big argument against having alternative energy is there's no market for it. Well, let the government be a marketplace, and we'll create the kind of demand that lowers the price rather than raises the price.
Congressman Hunter?
You know, I'd say instead of mandates, incentives.